No problem. I'm busy. You don't see that? I'm busy. What the fuck do you want now?
Don't take it like that. I just came with a question about feeding snakes.
This? Okay. I'll explain to you what you need. Yo, wake up. Sure, not there. Here, not there. I know it's beautiful, not there. Here. What do you technically want about feeding? Because there's a lot to talk about for feeding. Feeding is very broad, so...
There are things I don't get. So I've seen a lot of stuff, but I want to know, what do I need to give to my snake as food?
Very good idea. So the thing is, yeah, feeding is a little off topic because it's a little weird topic, I should say. Because you have that thing where it depends on age, depends on species and stuff. So we're gonna go through the 3 species that I keep and, you know, go on and on. I think it's a pretty good average. I have 3 total different species. So I think it's a good average for you to see. So we're gonna go first with corn snakes. So you know this. So corn snakes, for example, are those faster metabolism animals, like this one here. This magnificent snow sunkist here is a fast metabolism animal for a snake. Why? Because corn snakes, on the other, ooh, a very sassy snake. Because corn snakes, for example, here at this size, for example, they need to grow. They need to turn into adults like this one. And if you want them to turn into adults, well, in 2 years, well, they have to eat, I guess. So the thing is that, for example, these baby corn snakes get food every 5 to 7 days or something like that. Ooh, very sassy. 5 to 7 days, something like that, you know. So they will need that food so they can grow faster and better. But as age goes, for example, they will need to slow down because they don't need as much food. And I'm going to put that one back. They will need food, you know, less food because there will be grown-ups, for example, you know. But for corn snakes, you have that point and then you go there. But we're going to go about adults and everything later on. So first thing, to continue about that, you have also the ball pythons. And for example, a ball python is this size, which is a yearling ball python, needs a little more food than your average, your typical adult ball python. Why? Because this guy is also growing. Now he grew a lot since I have him. He's almost 300 grams, where when I got him, he was around 80, I think. So he almost tripled in size. He mostly more than tripled in size, in weight, at least in the last year. So yeah, but he's, for example, fed every 7 days, where the other one are fed every 5 to 7 days, because he has a much slower metabolism, for example, than a corn snake, even though it's much faster than an adult ball python, for example. And also eat bigger meals, so the amount of nutrient they pick is also bigger than what they have. For example, a baby corn snake eats like 1 gram newborn mouse, for example, you know. So you have that, for example. So snakes like this one here, I'm at every week now. And then you have also the other one. So as we said, you have your happy doopy carpet pythons, which are very interesting to have. Because the carpet python like this one, she's a year old now. She's more than a year old now. And as you can see, she's very, very longer than a ball python. I'm not going to say the same age, but around the same age. She's she's much longer, but she's also much lighter, because the other one is like almost 300 grams, while this one here is almost 200 grams. So there is a big difference. But the thing is that carpet python are longer and more arboreal species. Typically, they will eat bigger prey items for their size than a ball python or a corn snakes. But this, so for example, this one here is every 8 to 10 days. You know, I feed them every 8 days because they need to grow. But for example, if you go over there, you'll see that, you know, your snakes, you know, they're not fed the same way. Obviously, the bigger they get, the bigger food they get. But there is also something else, is that the bigger they get, there's also that thing where they also are, you know, bigger food and less frequency. So I don't know if you have any question or anything.
Yeah, okay, so how do I know when it's time to slow down or upgrade size?
Let's take, for example, one of the corn snakes over there. You see how lined they are, and the thing is that you have to see a lump in their body. If you see a lump in their body, it's gonna be much better for you, much better kind of. You're at the right size, I think. Now, if you want a little more math, you can go to 10 to 15% of their body weight, I would say, is a good measurements. But as they grow older, it's changed also the way you should measure that and everything. So why not go into the adults so you can see what I'm basically talking about? So when you have adults, for example, because they have a much slower metabolism, they don't need as much food, which makes kind of sense. So for your information, they never stop growing, so they grow their entire life. Now the difference is that between, let's say, 0 and 2 years old, they're gonna pump food. You're gonna pump food in them because, I mean, they need to grow in a sense. But they also, how can I say that? They also have that thing where they need to grow, obviously. So you pump food in them and everything. They have faster metabolism because they have to grow to adulthood, like there and or there, but you don't see it. So you get the idea almost.
They never stop growing? What the
Yeah,
heck?
they never stop growing. Yeah.
So they all become giants?
Nah. The thing is that's why I'm saying metabolism is very important. Metabolism is a big discussion on that one, because the metabolism is going to make it all work or not. It's what is going to tell you a little more what you should feed. I mean, you don't see metabolism like you see my skin or my ring or anything. It's not like you see that. It's just something you need to understand is that, like if you pump the same amount of food when you're 5 years old and then when you're 30, 40, it's not the same, because when you're 5, you need to grow. When you're 40, 30, 40, you don't need to grow because you don't grow at all anymore. The difference with for example, ball pythons or corn snakes or carpet pythons is that the older they get, the bigger they get. They don't have that thing where they stop growing. They never stop. No, the thing is that, I don't know, I said something out of the blue, is that, for example, a baby corn snake is gonna triple in size in a year. Let's say they go from 30 centimeters to 90 centimeters, for example. Okay, let's just take something a little stupid here. Well, in that same year, maybe the year after, once they go from a year 1 to 2, they will make, maybe instead of triple, they will just take maybe 30 centimeters. And then from being like, I don't know, 11 to 12 years old, they might take maybe half a millimeter of something like that to a millimeter, maybe half a centimeter, maybe, or something. You won't see that growth as much until you have like your pictures like, holy shit, last year my snake was around me like that, and now this year's like that. Up until you have that, you won't see it visually, really, I think, until you weigh them every week, or they have a small tank, and then once they're too big for the tank or stuff like that. Whatever, you get pretty much the idea. Yeah, adults. So let's go first. Yearlings. I don't really have a year. I mean, my albino is a yearling, and my ball pythons too is also a yearling. But like, yearlings are fed with me though at this pythons at the same rate as the babies. But for example, the corn snake that is a yearling is going to be fed every week. I'm gonna feed them up until like 2 years and a half every week. And once they get their adults, or can be considered adults, I'm gonna slow down. Now, slowing down with these guys is all very different. For example, a ball python, you can slow down once they reach that, if it's a pet, okay? I'm not talking breeding here, I'm just talking pet, pure pet. Personally, if I just had to go all over again and take a ball python as a pet, I would just, up until a year and a half, 2 years, every week. And once they're 2 years old, every 2 weeks. Once they reach 3 years old, or 4 years old, every 3 weeks or every month or so, depending on what you give them, obviously. We're going to talk about that later on. So yeah, for example, the carpet python, what I've been doing is that I feed him every 8 days for the first 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. And then I feed them every 2 weeks. Now, for example, Sukuna, my albino Darwin carpet, is fed every 2 weeks. Why? Because he's much bigger and he doesn't need as much food as he was when he was like 6 months old. And my oldest carpet python, it's not an old snake obviously, but my oldest carpet python, my biggest carpet python, which is Utahime, which is 3 years old. At 3 years old, I feed him every 3 weeks because, again, she doesn't need as much food intake as a baby snake. So I slowed down, and once she's gonna reach that 4 or 5 years old, she's gonna be fed every 4 to 6 weeks, because I think otherwise you will go fast into overfeeding them. Now the thing is that don't underfeed them. It's also something you have to keep in check. Observing your thing is very important. If you like glass enclosure like this one, it's very easy to see if your snake. It's very easy to see the times your snake is looking for food or is in hunt mode or whatever. But also something you have to understand is that don't take every sign your snake gives you as food, because you can feed your snake every single day. They will take it, or almost. They're gonna take it, but it's not healthy for them. You should not feed them more than reasonable. Now reasonable is from one to another. It's not the same, obviously, but it can give you a little idea of what you will need to do. I don't know if you have any question or so.
Okay, so now I get it about BPs, corns, and carpets. But what about other species, like green tree pythons?
I don't know about that. Honestly, I don't really know about that. Other type of snakes. I mean, the thing is, for example, I don't keep other snakes, so I won't try to talk about, hey, how should you feed your chondro, or how should you feed your scrub pythons or your boa constrictors, for example. I'm just gonna say, just stay logical, for example. I mean, if I had to guess, I would do the same I would mix a little bit feeding chondros. I think I might mix them between the corn snakes and the carpet python, or maybe go full on carpet python feeding schedule for these. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not going into these because I'm not keeping any of those. I've never tried it, so I don't know. But it might be a good question once we have a Granger Python on the expert on the channel, obviously.
Good advice and idea. So next, is there a point I need to stop upgrading in size for their meals?
No, there is a point where you need to stop giving bigger food, obviously. So I'm not going to say you cannot feed them oversized meals from time to time. That's what I do. But for example, my ball pythons are now fed on between 90 and 120 gram rats. The last 2-3 meals to my biggest ball python here, I gave her 250 gram rats. But then I leave her alone for like a week or two more than I do normally, for example. But no, there is a point when you need to stop. Like, once they're adult and let's say as adults, you feed them 100 gram rats. Don't go all again and again and again and again, above and above and above and above and above. There are some snakes you can do that, but then you have to slow very, very much down your food intake. But most of the time, once they're adult, I would stick with what they eat as adults in the first place and not give them bigger, just to be sure you don't mess things up.
Okay, so thank you for your answer, not your
Cool.
attitude.
So if you are all good, then I think you can go out because I have stuff to do. Out. So that was pretty much the thing. I don't know what you think about, but feeding has been a very big subject for the last months, years, I think. I've seen a lot more people talking about that, and I've seen my friend had a good question about feeding, I think, so the frequency and everything. So I don't know, did I forget something? If you have another way of doing stuff, just tell me, guys. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, follow AodaReptile on Instagram, on YouTube also, but you're on YouTube, Morph Market, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Let's go.